Hi, it's Alistair at Electric Scotland. I just wanted to do a little video about the Scottish Regiments and the armed forces in Canada. I was just looking through it the other day there. I was actually updating one of the pages, and I discovered that a few videos that I'd put up have disappeared again from YouTube. So I just wanted to thought I'd do a review of what you can find in that section and why some of the YouTube videos have disappeared. One of the things I'd like to say is that if you click on a page that actually gives you a list of videos that you can watch, sometimes when you click on the link and it goes to YouTube to let you view the video, it says not available. Or maybe say the account has been closed or something of that ilk. In other words, the video is gone. But usually I'll have a title with the video when you click the link. And if you copy that title into the search engine on YouTube, quite often you'll actually find that video, but it might be a slightly different title. Because I say if someone's taken it down, but someone else thought, well, I've got a copy of this, I think I'll put it up because it's important that it should be available to view. So on that kind of basis, I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, you know, I will, when I discover a video is not displaying, I will actually go and update the site and put a new link in, or if that link is totally gone and it can't be discovered, I'll maybe put an alternative video up in its place. It kind of depends, really. So I thought I'd just explain that to you, because I've often said that a picture tells 1,000 words, but you might say a video tells 1,000,000 words. So I think the videos are actually quite important. It's just, I wish that YouTube would come up with some kind of system where you could register if you've embedded a video on your website, that if that video no longer becomes available, they automatically send you an email out to tell you that the video has been taken down. That would be very helpful, but unfortunately they're so rich, these companies, that they don't really care about what you're trying to do. And as I'm a history site, I'm really all about permanency of information. That's why we have so many PDF files on the site, because it's permanent information will always be available. It's because some sites will go down. I mean, you can discover them on the Wayback Machine, for example. If you use that, you can discover old sites and old information, but there's no guarantees on that site. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. But then, if you go to electricscotland.com and click on Scots Regiments in the menu, you'll come to Scottish Military Highland Regiments. Now this was created as initially, when I first put up about, I think maybe 23 years ago now, I think. I created a section for Highland Regiments, and it came out of the book History of the Highlands, Highland Regiments and Highland Clans. And it was a 6-volume book, and I have to say that I don't think I've ever read another so readable history book as that 6-volume set. I mean, I read that cover to cover, and I've obviously had to, because it was in the early days, I had to literally type in from the book to get it onto the website. There was no OCRing software around in those days. So I really knew that. And I used the Highland Clan section to develop our current web clan section of the website. And I used the general history to do a history section of the website. And I used the clan regiments to add this Highland Regiment section to the website. Because I obviously thought, well, that's a good base, and from that I can grow the site, which has obviously grown enormously over the many years I've been running. I mean, we were around before Google existed, for example. In fact, I was one of the sites that Google contacted to see why we weren't highlighting them, you know. And so certainly I recommended Google way back in those days, and tons of people wrote and thanked me for telling them about it. So it was great. So you might see we contributed to the multi-trillion organization that Google is today. Okay, but anyway, on to the military side of things. One thing I did discover when I came to Canada was I was totally ignorant of the Canadian armed forces and what they've achieved in the world, both in the two world wars and in other wars around the world. And what they've done is just ginormous and amazing. I mean, I know, for example, if you take the First World War, I'm pretty sure Britain would have lost that war if it wasn't for the Canadians. I mean, their contribution was that important. And they discovered a way of defeating the Germans without losing tons and tons of their soldiers. I mean, the death rate on the British Army was horrendous. The Canadians managed to literally half that. So the way that they took the war into new perspectives was just great, because it saved thousands and thousands of lives. So I think you really want to learn more about it. I mean, like one of the things is the Battle of Vimy Ridge. And there's a huge war memorial there in France on Vimy Ridge, and it's the Canadian memorial there. And of course the Canadians liberated Holland, and ever since then the people there have held the Canadians in very high esteem. So anyway, so if you go to electricscotland.com first of all and go to the Scots Regiments there, you'll find that the first maybe 20 links are actually links to the discussions on various regiments within that History of the Highlands, Highland Clans, Highland Regiments volumes. But obviously since then I've greatly expanded on that. Like we've got Soldiers of Fortune, which tells about some of the very significant Scots that went round the world and actually did amazing things. And quite amazing what they've achieved. And as I say, they're extremely readable. I mean, I don't think I've found one of the army or any of the armed forces books at all boring. They've all been fascinating, interesting, and well-told stories. It's obviously well-educated people that wrote these things. So we've got, I think it's just a question of reading through it. I mean, like, for example, I've got Scots at War, which is a video series of Scots at War. And in that particular one, we've got, there's, I think each part's about an hour. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, it's a 4-part series that, and that's all available on the site. So you can actually watch that. That's video series of Scots at War, 4-part series. So certainly it was dated February 2nd, 2010. So about 10 years old or so. But well worth viewing that. I've also got, for example, a lot of biographies like Sir Donald Stewart and Sir William Lockhart. I mean, they were amazing people. And we've got General Robert Melville of Strathkinnis, Major John MacDonald, Major General Alexander Mackenzie, Major John MacDonald. I mean, if you just read some of their biographies, it's pretty amazing what they've achieved. Really amazing. But I've also got, for example, the Sub, being the autobiography of David Munro, Sub-Lieutenant, Royal Navy. And we've obviously got some stuff on the Royal Air Force as well in there. And also the we've also got stuff like from the like the mechanics, the air mechanics that kept the aircraft flying. We've got information about them. We've got information on machine guns. We've got a lot of technical information, in other words, in there. And one of the recent ones, because of the like soldier to civilian, is Problems of Readjustment by George K. Pratt, MD. This was written in 1944. And I think we now know that a lot of people are very affected by being in a war situation. I can never quite remember the letters, but PSMD, something like that. I probably got that wrong, but this is obviously a recognition back in 1944 by the Americans that there were issues translating from being a soldier to a civilian. And so that's pretty fascinating to read on its own. And then equally well, I've got an old history about recruiting by an army chaplain. He comments on how in the very old days that they actually recruited people for the navy and also for the army. You got the shilling or the penny or whatever, and it shows some of the, shall we say, rather dubious means they had of almost kidnapping people in a sense. But pretty fascinating to read through it. And we've even got some small things like the Pipes of War, which talks about the bagpipers that played on the battlefield and how many of them got VCs and many of them died, of course. But the pipes were very important to stimulate the men, and it did make a huge difference to them. And then I've got one is 1,000 Men Are Walking. This is by Joshua Dyer, aged 14, was tasked at school to write a poem for Remembrance Day in 2019. And I've got a copy of his poem up there for you to read. So tons of great stuff. I've also got like a story of active service in foreign lands. It's compiled from letters sent home from South Africa, India and China between 1856 and 1882 by Surgeon General A. Graham Young. So, tremendous amount of stuff which gives you the greatest history. And we've got a list of major battles, Battle of the Somme, the SAS Self-Defense Handbook is even there. So, that's all within the electricscotland.com site, but if you then transition to the electriccanadian.com site, you'll see in the menu we've got Armed Forces. And when you click on the Armed Forces section, again you'll see lots of videos and and tons of links to all kinds of things there. But I said this section devoted to our armed forces and emergency services. They all contributed and still do contribute a great deal to Canada and Canadians. We will mostly provide information from antiquarian resources, but we'd love to hear from any of our visitors who can contribute text, pictures or videos to the site. We've made use of many of the free and out of copyright resources in PDF format to help bring you the story. Where we provide a PDF publication, we'll add PDF to the link and description so you know it's a PDF file you'll be linking to. So, and the first video is Life of the Canadian Armed Forces. But tracing back the lineage of the Black Watch, the Seaforth Highlanders in Canada, it's by Neil Fraser. Over the Top with the 25th, Chronicles of Events at Vimy Ridge, by Lieutenant R. Lewis. We've got the Royal Northwest Mounted Police, which is the forerunner of the Royal Mounted Police. We've got Recollections of a Police Magistrate, Trooper and Redskin in the Far Northwest, Recollections of Life in the Northwest Mounted Police from 1884 to 1888 by John G. Donkin. The War of 1812, I mean many of you won't know about that of course, but that's when the USA attacked Canada. So, it's actually by Major John Richardson, and it also incorporates the life of the author. Then we've got, on the eve of the 100th anniversary of the Canadian Navy, Vice Admiral Dean McFadden, Commander of the Canadian Navy, discusses the state of Canada's maritime force. So, we've got the 48th Highlanders of Toronto, Gathering of the Clans, Canada's contribution to the First World War, the Scottish military tradition in Canada, Canada's Blackwatch, the 5th Regiment, Royal Scots of Canada Highlanders. Bearing in mind that a lot of the stuff I took from the Electric Scotland site when I created Electric Canadian, because I thought that would be a quick way to build up that site so that anyone visiting would get a decent amount of content. But of course, since doing that initial work and utilising Electric Scotland's content to build Electric Canadian, I've obviously since gone ahead and done a ton more on the Canadian site, which isn't on the Electric Scotland site. So it's, I mean, we've got lots of histories of all the various battalions and everything else, like sketch of the 100th Prince of Wales Royal Canadian Regiment, the Duke of Cornwall's own rifles, the 85th Canadian Infantry Battalion, historical record of the 76th Overseas Battalion, 4th Canadian Mounted Rifles, the Naval Service of Canada's official history in 2 volumes, that's Volume 1 and Volume 2, historical records of the New Brunswick Regiment, Canadian Artillery, history of the Queen's Own Rifles of Canada, the origin and services of the Prince of Wales Regiment, origin and services of the 3rd Montreal Field Battery of Artillery, Canadian MEGs, the history of the Canadian Machine Gun Corps, Canadian Forestry Corps, and then there's a wee video saying, putting us Brits to shame, take a lesson from Canada, from the Canadians, so that's a be interesting video. King's Regulations and Orders of the Canadian Militia. This is a very rare book, that. It's fundamental to researchers studying the Canadian Expeditionary Force in the Great War. Adapted from the British King's Regulation and Orders, this is the legal document that set the stage for the development of Canadian militia units at the start of the Great War. So that's quite something. Now we've got Canada at War, a record of heroism and achievement. Again, that's in the First World War. We've also got Canadian Armed Forces, a collection of videos on many aspects. And that takes you to a YouTube link, which gives you a whole pile of stuff.
Lieutenant General Chris Whitecross recently transferred command of the NATO Defense College in a ceremony held in Rome, Italy. Lieutenant General Whitecross, who assumed command of the college over 3 years ago, now looks forward to her upcoming retirement, following a storied military career during which she was frequently recognized for her service with the Canadian Armed Forces, NATO, and in various command positions.
That actually is regularly updated. You can subscribe to that and actually get regular updates sent to you. We've got the Essex and Kent Scottish, the regimental family. The Last Post, the story of the Last Post, that is. Desert Lions, Canadian Forces mentors. We've got Sergeant Preston of the Yukon. This is a series of videos that went out on television. So you know, there's we've got Secret Warriors Canadian Special Operations Regiment. That's a video there. Secret intelligence activities at Camp X, Canada and the Korean War, a video history that is. Canada in Afghanistan, it's another long video. Canada's 100 Days with the Canadian Corps from Amiens de Mons, this is 18. The Royal Canadian Navy in the Battle of the Atlantic, and this is the Second World War. The RCAF Squadron during World War II. There's more serious for King and Country, a series of videos about Canadians who gave their life in World War II. So, in other words, you've also got like Strathcona's horse. Remember, he was the governor of the Hudson Bay Company, Strathcona. So he sponsored and raised the money for this the Strathcona horse that fought in South Africa. You know, there's certainly one. I've got Oh Canada, a medley of stories, verse, pictures and music contributed by members of the Canadian Expeditionary Force in 1916. It says, Oh Canada is not put forth as the most scintillating example of the literary pictorial talent of the members of the Canadian Expeditionary Force. As a rule, our efforts at scintillation are somewhat hampered. Cases have been known where quite witty jest has suddenly lost their point or been supplied with a new one in the shape of a 5.9 essence. Cold feet also is a complaint unfavourable to humour. Wherefore it is alleged that most of the current trench jokes and dugout drawings are done in London flats by junior members of the War Office staff. We cannot vouch for this. All that needs to be said, gentle reader, with regard to the present Podrida is that it is an attempt to round up a few scattered details and follow them into an active unit. The appearance of O Canada will not, we trust, interfere with the vigorous prosecution of the war. The psalm will duly be set on fire, but copies of O Canada will not be used as incendiary ammunition. It may cause a few momentary misgivings in the breast of little Willie, but on the other hand, it will probably confirm all General von Bernhardt's calculated opinions of our colonial futility. However, our trench VV Fritz has seen us in various parts and postures. It's unlikely he likes us. One or two things have crept into this publication which may further wound his feelings, but I can't be helped. Oh, Canada will remind our friends as well as our foes that wherever any occasion arises for their presence, the Bing boys are here. So, you know, a whole variety of great stuff. So I hope that you'll enjoy it. So you go to electricscotland.com or electriccanadian.com, pick up the Scottish Regiments or the Armed Forces in either of the sites, and you'll have literally hours of viewing and reading enjoyment. And I say, don't forget that a lot of the videos do work. The ones that don't, use the title to do a search on YouTube, and there's a very good chance you'll find another copy of it to view. Okay, well, thanks for listening, and I hope you all have a great weekend when it comes, and I hope you're staying safe, keeping your distance, and being sensible. Like if you see a really crowded bar, don't go in. Simple as that. Make sensible decisions. Okay, thanks for listening.